Welcome to the Mastermind series, where every month we learn from the wisdom of leading authors, trainers, and innovators. This is your host, Andrew Barber Starkey, and this month I'm talking to an expert, indeed a pioneer in the field of mind power. This man was born in Toronto. In 1975, he moved to the West Coast and withdrew to the wooded seclusion of the British Columbia wilderness to spend 3 years in intensive study and contemplation about the inner workings of the human mind. By applying his own observations and insights to the scientific and spiritual sources of the time, he created the first straightforward and successful program for helping people develop their own mind power. In 1978, he began traveling and teaching people the principles he had formulated. And by 1980, the phenomenal success of his speaking tour had grown to encompass the globe. Since then, he has taught and lectured to literally hundreds of thousands of people. He has also authored 4 books, the best known being Mind Power into the 21st Century, which has sold over 500,000 copies and hit the bestseller list in 12 countries. His other books include A Vision of Power and Glory, Money, Success, and You, and its latest, The Practice of Happiness. It's a great honor to have
as my
guest today.
Well, let me first of all start off by just for a minute or two explaining the whole premise behind mind powers and why and how mind powers work. Everything in our physical universe is made up of vibrations of energy. Everything. The telephone that you use is made up of vibrations of energy. The seat that you're sitting on is made up of vibrations of energy. The clothes that you're wearing is made up of vibrations of energy. The walls in your house are made up of vibrations of energy. Everything in the physical universe is made up of vibrations of energy. And our thoughts are also vibrations of energy. Our thoughts are the most dynamic, fluid substance in the entire universe. That thoughts are a vibration of energy separate and independent of our physical universe, and yet it interacts with our physical universe. Now, one of the most amazing things to understand is that any thought that is repeated over and over and over again in your conscious mind will take an imprint into the subconscious. Now, once this imprints into the subconscious mind, it then acts as a tuning fork. It begins vibrating, and it attracts to you the people, the circumstances, the events, the synchronicity that matches the images that you have within. That you have a very real power to influence and direct the things that happen to you working with your thoughts. Now, one of the beautiful things about the subconscious mind as well is that the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. So that you can program and imprint into your subconscious anything that you choose. There was a very famous experiment done in one of the large American universities where they took a group of college students and they divided them into 3 separate groups, and they tested them for skill at throwing the basketball at the basket. And then they recorded their scores. And what they did is they had the first group come in to the gym every day for a half hour and practice throwing the ball at the basket. The second group engaged in no practice, and the third group engaged in a very different practice. What they did is they had them come into the gym, just mentally imagine that they're throwing the ball, and mentally imagine that they're scoring, doing it only in their mind. And then after a month, they brought them back and they tested them again. And what they found is that the first group that practiced every day for real showed an over 25% improvement in their score, which you'd expect because they're practicing. The second group, which did no practice, showed no improvement, and again, no surprises there. The third group, which practiced only in their mind, which never once touched a ball, interestingly enough, improved equally as much as the group that practiced for real. Now, how is this possible? Simple. By practicing in their mind over and over and over again, that took an imprint into the subconscious. So when it came time to throw the ball, their subconscious was imprinted with the fact that they were good at throwing the ball. And it showed up, of course, in their performance. Now, the implications of this go far beyond just sports training. We can use this for finances. We can use this for relationships. We can use this in our career. We can use this to cure ourselves of our illness. There is no area of your life working with mind power techniques such as visualization, such as seeding, such as affirmations, such as acknowledging, such as recreating new beliefs in your mind. There is a whole number of techniques that the Mind Power student practices, and when you do that, what happens is you begin to take control of your life. That your thoughts are the most incredibly powerful source of nourishment, source of a dynamic abundance that we have in our life, and nobody teaches us how to think. We're taught, be positive, do the best you can. Well, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. Being a positive thinker is a very, very simplistic, basic level of mind powers. You can do a lot more than be positive. You can start to work with this dynamic, powerful forces that you have in a very, very powerful way. And that's what I teach, and that's what people prosper with.
So basically, I think what I read in the book is it says the powers of the mind are governed by laws which can be easily understood by anybody.
Exactly. There's nothing too difficult about this. Once you awaken, and it is a real awakening. I mean, I know for myself when I first realized that, my God, my thoughts influence my reality. Not by being positive. I have to re-emphasize this point. People sometimes mistake mind powers for positive thinking. It's not just simply being positive. It's actually using techniques to imprint into your subconscious. That's the key. You want these beliefs, you want these images, not just on a conscious level. That's positive thinking. You want it on a subconscious level. And once it takes on a subconscious level, then you are attracting those things to you. And there is no greater turning point in a person's life to discover that I have personal power, that I am the master of my destiny, and all it takes is maybe 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes a day would transform your life if you're willing to practice it on a regular basis.
And if you're practicing the right techniques.
Yes, and I might also mention that this can work equally as well against you. Your thoughts can bring sickness. They can keep you in poverty. They can keep you from succeeding at your goals. In fact, that's one of the great tragedies of our day, is that most people are not getting ahead because, number one, they're working too hard. I'm not a big believer in hard work. I know I've done talks sometimes to corporations, and sales managers will be looking on in horror as I'm saying that maybe your problem is you're working too hard. You should never work too hard. You should always work smart, not hard. It has nothing to do with hard work. It has to do with your consciousness. It has to do with your beliefs. It has to do with your thoughts. That is what is going to create your reality.
Well, what's the downside of overwork? Because I know there is one.
Well, I think there's a lot of downsides to overwork. Number one, I don't think it's a lot of fun, and I'm distrustful of any life that is not joyful. And when I say joyful, it doesn't mean that you're, suddenly going around in ecstasy every moment of every day. But I mean, if you're working these long hours under all kinds of stress, what kind of quality of life is that? I mean, you have to insist that your life has joy and fun in it. So I think the downside of too much work is, number one, it doesn't give you quality life. And the second downside of it is that when you're working too hard, you're not going to get good quality ideas. And one of the things I teach is how to tap into your intuition and get ideas from your subconscious mind. The intuition is one of the vehicles that you use to tap into your subconscious, and there are hundreds of absolutely fabulous, great ideas to help you make money, to help you succeed, to help you achieve your goal that you would never, ever find simply by running in your conscious mind the same old information. You have to go into your subconscious and get a whole breath of new life in your day-to-day life. And when you do that, you suddenly, all these insights and brilliant ideas start sparking. So this doesn't happen when you're working too hard. And sometimes I say to people that, you're working so hard you probably won't be successful. And they sort of look at me all stunned like, but it's absolutely true. You must give yourself good quality time and honor yourself.
It's interesting because one of the things that we use in the Success Tracks coaching program is a time system that involves people taking freedom days. And a freedom day is a day where you do absolutely no work in any way, shape, or form.
Very important.
And often people say, but I love my work so much, I don't want to take a freedom day. And I think that you're really reinforcing that the benefit of that is when you get away from work and let go, it actually gives the creativity and the intuition a time to go deep into your subconscious and really get in touch with some of the abundance of ideas and thoughts that are down there.
Yeah, well, it was Albert Einstein who said, why do I always get my best ideas in the shower? It's just even that little time away. And I'm a big believer in having time where you just reflect and think and get away from things.
Well, and if we're still talking about the downsides of overwork, you mentioned earlier on that really our lives, our minds are resonating at a certain frequency. We're going to attract things that are at the same frequency. And if we're in that frantic, stressful place of overwork, it's not going to really attract the right quality of things that we want anyway.
Absolutely. And it's also showing somewhat of a lack of self-respect for yourself and a lack of self-image in a way. I mean, it's almost like you're saying to yourself that I have to work 16 hours a day in order to be successful. Well, how come? I mean, you are a brilliant human being. There are thousands of opportunities. There are staggering opportunities to make money out there. There are staggering opportunities to be successful out there. I mean, why do we have this erroneous belief that I have to work constantly in order to be successful? Now, you will find, and I've made, when I wrote my book, Money, Success, and You, it was quite interesting that when I was in my manuscript form of that book, I sent the manuscript to about a dozen of my friends who were financially successful. And what was interesting is I made a list of them, and by financially successful I meant as a net worth of over $1 million. And as I made my list, something very interesting came to me. I realized that every single one of those people made their money in areas that they loved. I mean, one was in home renovation, another was in publishing, another was a jewelry wholesaler, another was a clothes manufacturer, that every single one of them made their fortunes in things that they loved to do. And it got me thinking, has anybody ever made a great deal of money by doing something that they don't love? And you know what? I couldn't think of one person.
Great question.
I mean, not only people I know, but out there in the world. I mean, Bill Gates didn't say to himself, oh, I wonder how I can be the richest man in the world. Oh, I think I'll get into computers. He got into computers because he loved it. And that's one of the secrets of success as well, is find something that you love to do. And then, of course, if you love to do it, not only are you going to be more successful at it, but you're going to have more fun in your life. And fun and joy is one of the principles that I teach.
Right, so you win both ways.
You win both ways.
I'm thinking also about the overwork, and going back to the very first principle I think you mentioned to us was trust the universe. And my thought is that one of the reasons that people kill themselves working so hard is because they simply believe there's not enough, that they're going to fail, and they're living in fear of scarcity, and they've got to work so hard. And the other perhaps is a belief that there's not enough, they're not safe unless they have power, and they're not okay unless they have power, so they have to be successful in order to be okay that way. So either way, it's not really trusting the universe.
Not at all. I remember one time in one of my seminars, I had someone, and I really like people to clearly define their goals, because it is one of the maxims of Mind Powers, is that you must know what you want before you can get it. And so this person was saying, I want to be the richest man in Canada. And I thought to myself, okay, well, that's interesting. And I questioned him further, and I said, well, why do you want to be the richest man in Canada? And he said, so I can prove that it can be done. And I just thought, well, what a weak reason to do it. I mean, the beautiful thing about life is that we get to choose whatever goal we want. I mean, isn't that wonderful? The whole free will. Everybody lives their life in a different way. Everyone can have different goals, different objectives, different definitions of success. We get to define it in our own way. But to need to do that just to prove he could do it, I thought was showing actually a little bit of lack of self-confidence in himself. And the same thing in our life is, let's examine why we have these goals. And when you examine them, sometimes you find that your motivations aren't as true as we initially thought they would be. So you don't want to end up, like the old saying goes, to be the man who ends up climbing the ladder of success only to find that it's up against the wrong wall, you know. That's what I think midlife crises are, by the way. It's I think it's a wonderful thing that at the midway point of our life that our psyche should shake us up. I mean, whenever someone's going through a midlife crisis, I always say to them, how wonderful. Oh, I'm so happy for you. And they always look at me strange, but I am happy for them, because it's a wonderful thing that at the midway point of your life, your psyche should shake you and demand that you look at your life, demand that you look at your values, demand that you look at the choices that you're making. And midlife crises are never enjoyable. I mean, they're always unpleasant, and you go through anguish and turmoil and self-doubt, and you go through all these things. But you come out the other end stronger and a clearer idea of what is important in you. And that's what reevaluation is. And at different stages of our life, either we take time to do that, or life will gift us with a crisis and make us do it.
Mm-hmm. So midlife crisis is really an opportunity for us to take a look at the ladder and see which wall it's up against, and whether that's really where we want to keep on climbing to.
Absolutely.
Right at the beginning of Mind Power, one of the things you say is the first step to changing your life is to pay attention to the flows inside the thoughts inside your head, and then direct them accordingly. Can you talk a little about that?
Yes. Every day we're thinking thousands of thoughts, absolutely thousands of them. And when you realize that your thoughts influence, affect, and help to create your reality, then you become very conscious of what you're thinking. And for example, let's take money for an example. Is when you think about money, what exactly do you think about usually when you think about money? Is it that money is difficult to make? That there's no good opportunities out there to make money, that I never seem to have enough money. I mean, if these are the type of thoughts that you generally think, unfortunately what's happening is you are imprinting that reality into your subconscious. Just by your day-to-day worrying and concern about money, you are imprinting into your subconscious a scarcity consciousness. And as I said earlier in our discussion, that once things are imprinted in the subconscious then begins to attract the people, the circumstances, the events that match the images that you have within. So you are actually keeping yourself in a spiraling, never-ending experience of frustration on getting ahead financially. And I don't care how many hours a day you work. I don't care how many new jobs you go to. I don't care how many new schemes and ideas you have. If your beliefs about money are limiting, then you are going to not be manifesting money. Now, the opposite is equally true. And this is the beautiful thing about mind powers, and I might repeat myself 2 or 3 times in our interview here, because repetition is one of the key aspects to getting things, is that your subconscious will accept any thought or belief that you continually imprint. And imprinting is one of the techniques that I teach in Mind Powers. If we have time, we'll get into it in this interview. If not, then you can read my books or come do my seminars. 1 hour will pass by like the speed of a bullet when you have a good, interesting interview. So it sounds like a long time, an hour interview, but I'll tell you, it is just going to whiz by like the blinking of an eye. But anyways, you can imprint into your subconscious prosperity beliefs. And even if you don't believe it, and this is another thing, you don't have to consciously believe it. All you have to do is imprint it over and over and over again. And what will happen is day by day, it will begin to take an imprint, and you will change your beliefs about money. As you change your beliefs about money, as you take on prosperity beliefs, then what happens is that begins to attract those situations to you. So if it is money, if money is something that is important, and you do want to manifest and attract money into your life, then you must imprint prosperity consciousness beliefs and not work with scarcity consciousness.
So basically, we started by saying you need to pay attention to the flow of thoughts inside your mind.
Yes.
But it's beyond that. We then need to identify them and examine them and take a look at the ones that are consistent with what we're desiring. And if if those are not there, then we need to redirect our mind into a new place through the affirmations, through the mind power techniques. Whether we believe them at our deepest level or not, we can still change the subconscious mind towards those prosperity beliefs.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk a little about the prosperity consciousness. You talk, one of the quotes I made a note of here is, anybody desiring financial independence must first develop a prosperity consciousness. Note, I said develop because it does not happen by chance. And then you go on to explain your 5 steps for building prosperity. Would you be willing to share those with our listeners?
Sure. Well, let's start with our first prosperity belief, is that it is an abundant universe. And if you want to create prosperity in your life, then you want to recognize prosperity everywhere. You want to get into your mind on seeing and feeling and sensing and being surrounded with prosperity. For example, you can go down to the center of whatever city that you live in, and you look at the buildings there. Well, somebody owns those buildings. Somebody built those buildings. Somebody's living in the penthouse of those buildings right now. I mean, there is so much money around. There is billions and billions and billions of dollars transferring in the free enterprise system hourly, money moving from one place to another, to recognize that the world that we live in is actually loaded. There is so much money out there, and that the free enterprise system rewards ingenuity and service, that if you have a good idea, a good service, a good product, that you can market that in such a way as to make yourself a fortune. The marketplace does not care if you're a man or a woman. It doesn't care what your spiritual belief is. It doesn't care what the color of your skin is. As long as you have the right product or service, you can make a great deal of money. And to recognize that there are millions of millionaires out there. I mean, it's many people's goal to be a millionaire, and I think it's a wonderful goal. If indeed that's what you want to do, if you want to be a manifester of money, then go out there and make a lot of it. Recognize, I think the most recent statistic in the United States, I don't have one for Canada, but in the United States, was there was something like 6 million millionaires. I mean, these are not an endangered species. So if they can do it, why not you? Are they any different from you? Not at all. As I say, with prosperity consciousness and good ideas and initiative and finding your calling, there is no reason why you can't make a great deal of money. So the first prosperity belief is that it is an abundant universe, and that there's lots of prosperity out there. Staggering opportunities, that's another one of my prosperity beliefs, is that there are staggering opportunities to make a great deal of money out there. I'm always amazed when I speak to people on how it is that they've made their money, successful people. I remember one person that took my training in New Zealand. Actually, I do travel and teach all over the world. And he called me out and he said, "John, I took your training a number of years ago. I want you to come out." And he had a chocolate brown Rolls Royce out there. And he said, "This is all because of your teaching." And I said, "Well, great." And I said, "Well, how did you do it? You know, what idea did you use?" And he said, "Well, I opened up a backpackers hostel. And that led into a string of backpacker hostels, and he's a multimillionaire." Now, who would think that operating a backpacker hostel would produce millions of dollars in profit? But nonetheless, it did. There is so many ways of making money out there, but you got to find something that you feel good about.
Well, I was going to say that may take us back to the importance of doing what you love, and knowing that even if you limit yourself, quote, by doing only what you love, there's still a huge number of opportunities to operate and to be successful.
Absolutely. Another one of my prosperity beliefs is that it's our duty and responsibility to succeed, and I spoke about that a little bit earlier in our talk here, and I really think that each and every one of us brings to the table a little piece to the puzzle, that each of us has an answer to some solution or problem or difficulty that we have here on this planet, that we're all plugged into the same system, and that we really have to honor what's calling us, because that is what is not only going to make us successful, but that is what is going to be our contribution to our fellow members here in the human race. Mm-hmm. Like when I, for example, honored that calling to leave my business as a rock and roll promoter, I mean, I was making a lot of money. I was having fun with it. I just heard that little call within me to move on. Now, as it turns out, at the time, of course, it was a bit of a traumatic decision. It wasn't like oh yes, I'll just do it. I mean, I waited up, pro and con, had a few sleepless nights over it, and until I, ultimately made the decision. But now, 20 years later, I can look at it and say, well, wow, what a fabulous decision that was, because not only have I been tremendously successful in my new calling with best-selling books and successful seminars and traveling around the world and having a fun, profitable, interesting life. I mean, not only that, but look at the hundreds of thousands of people that I have got to touch and teach on how to work with the powers of their mind. I mean, isn't it great that I did honor that? Because if I hadn't, then a different destiny would have befell me.
So by honoring your calling, it's not a selfish thing at all. In fact, it's really an opportunity for the whole world to receive your work.
Absolutely. You have to follow your bliss. What is it that makes your heart jump for joy? You will never be successful doing something you don't like. You can make a living doing something you don't like, but you will never be tremendously successful doing something you don't like.
Mm-hmm, which I guess leads us back to prosperity consciousness.
Yep.
I want to go back to your explanation of imprinting, because I really did feel quite impacted by the way you said it. What you talked about that really resonated for me was, you said, when we go to school, we learn our times table.
Yeah.
And, 7 6 is 42, and
yeah.
I could remember that at gunpoint and waking up in the middle of the night.
Yep.
It's truly imprinted in my mind, and you talked about the importance of imprinting the messages that will support us into our subconscious. Could you expand on that a bit?
Yes. Well, we've used imprinting twice already in our life, as you mentioned, the multiplication tables. I mean, if I was to say what's 7 times 7, immediately we know it's 49. What's 8 times 10? Well, immediately we know it's 80. Well, how do we know those things? Well, because they've been imprinted countless number of times. 1 times 7 is 7. 2 times 7 is 14. 3 times 7 is 21. It's been imprinted over and over and over again. Yet if I was to say, well, what's 13 times 8? We wouldn't know. And the reason is they only taught us to 12. They felt it was. The thing is, the multiplication table is imprinted into our consciousness. What's 12 times 12? 144. We know that. The same thing with our language. Our language has been imprinted into our consciousness. That's why we can have this interview and we can understand each other's words, because the vocabulary has been imprinted into our consciousness. So those are 2 examples of imprinting that have happened in our life. But the third and the most fascinating and the most challenging and the most interesting imprinting is for us to imprint empowering beliefs into our consciousness. And you do that much the same way as the multiplication table. What you do is you take a belief that you choose to believe. For example, the very first time that I imprinted into my mind was during my time in the cabin. And I wanted to imprint into my mind that I have unlimited power at my disposal. So what I would do is every evening before I went to bed, I would take out 5 minutes and I would think about the powers of the mind and about the power of choice and how I can choose my thoughts and how thoughts have power to them, and that by choosing your thoughts you can direct and influence your actions, and you can create vibrations of energy within you that will attract realities to you, and that this is very powerful, and that I have unlimited power at my disposal. So what I would do is I would spend 5 minutes every day contemplating this, thinking about it, affirming to myself that I have unlimited power. Sometimes when I would do it, I would get really excited. It would be like I would come out of my little 5-minute exercise and just feel really empowered. And yes, that's true, and it's great, and it's wonderful. Other times when I would do it, it would be almost like I was lying to myself. Like, who are you kidding? You know, you don't have unlimited power. And sometimes it would be like I was fooling myself. Sometimes when I did it, it would be very cold and mechanical. And other times it would be exciting and inspiring. But the key here is I did it every day. I charted myself. I never missed a day. Whether it was exciting to do it, whether it was boring to do it, I did it every day. Mind Powers needs repetition. And somewhere between 60 and 90 days, and that is a very, very key in imprinting, is that it needs time, but somewhere around that 60 to 90 day period, I remember waking up and just waking up with this flaming reality that I have unlimited power at my disposal, and I knew it. I owned it. It was imprinted. And from that point on, I have never, ever doubted it. Mm-hmm. Much the same as I don't doubt 7 times 7 is 49. I mean, I don't have to go to my calculator and say, is it really 49 or is it 48? I don't have to double check. I know it's 49. I don't have to double check on how much power I have. I know that I have unlimited power at my disposal.
So it's simply repetition over and over again for even up to 90 days.
Exactly. Repetition is the key with Mind Powers. This is the difference between positive thinking and Mind Powers. Mm-hmm. Is positive thinking is that think positive and positive things will happen to you. And I've nothing, no bone to pick with positive thinking. I'd certainly much rather you be positive than negative. But Mind Powers is taking it a step beyond that. What it is it's defining very clearly what it is you want, and then through techniques of affirmations, visualizations, imprinting, acknowledging, creating new beliefs, by actually putting these things through repetition so that your subconscious mind begins to pick up on it. And repetition is the key. You don't have to spend a lot of time with Mind Powers. You can, as I said earlier, you can transform your life with as little as 5-10 minutes a day. But you do have to do a little bit of work every day on it. It doesn't happen magically.
You have to be giving yourself the right messages.
And you do have to be giving yourself the right messages.
Mm-hmm. You talked about acknowledgement, and I know that you absolutely use it as one of the techniques for gaining confidence and energy. Could you give us a little explanation of how that can be part of our daily practice?
Yeah, in the acknowledging technique, what I suggest that people do is they make a list of at least 15 or 20 things that make you feel really good and successful about who and what you are now. And the key is now. Too often what happens is that we are always thinking about the goals that we want to achieve, things that we're going to do, things that we're going to be, changes that are going to happen, always out there in the future. And that's fine. I mean, that you have goals. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, what you want to do is you want to create a vibration of success now, and nothing succeeds like success. Success is a vibration, and it attracts more success to it. So what you do is you make a list of at least 15 or 20 things that make you feel really good and successful now. And they can be very simple things, like I'm a good parent, I'm a safe driver, I dress well, I have good ideas, I'm a good friend, I make a great omelet, I know how to close a business deal. Put personal things down, put business things down, just things that make you feel successful about who and what you are now. And what you do, and when I say 15 or 20 things, some people have acknowledging lists that are like 50 things on it. But you can add to it. And what you want to do is you want to spend 5 minutes every day going over this list and feeling really successful about who and what you are now. And that creates a success vibration now. And that success vibration now attracts to it future successes. It's a really simple and yet incredibly powerful technique, because what will happen is if you start your day with this technique, then you start your day in a success vibration.
So it's another way of imprinting, really.
It's another way. Well, everything, all mind powers, really is imprinting. Whether visualization as well. Visualization is really imprinting into your consciousness the exact goal, seeing, feeling, tasting, vibrating, exactly what it is that you want to have happen to you. But one of the keys and one of the tricks with visualization is that you always visualize it as if it's happening now. See, a lot of people make the mistake is they visualize that they're going to achieve it, that they will achieve it, that it's something happening in the future. In the visualization, you want to visualize it as if it's happening now to you. It's a little trick, like, for example, the example I used with the basketball. I mean, they visualize, they imagine that they were throwing the ball, they imagine that it was scoring. The same thing with your visualization is whatever it is that you want to have happen in your life, whatever it is, what you do is you visualize it as if it is already happening now. Now, you don't have to hang on to that all day. That's another mistake people make, is they think they have to hang on to this feeling desperately, every day. I can't ever let a negative or contradictory thought in, I have to defend this at all costs. Not at all. Relax. Take it easy. As long as you're doing it for 5 minutes a day, every day, the subconscious mind will quite naturally pick up on it.
Fabulous, fabulous. I'm going to switch books on you now, because I've read also the Practice of Happiness, and it's just such a delightful book. The principles that you put in it, and the way you illustrate them with examples from your own life, and then go on into greater depth from that. It's such an inspiring and easy to read, almost compelling book. I kept saying, well, I'm just going to put it down after this chapter, and then I get to the beginning of the next one, I wouldn't be able to put it down. And
that's great.
I just absolutely loved your story in there about gratitude, and really how gratitude is a matter of perspective, and the letter you received from your friend, talking about his misfortune and how you suddenly realized that it's all perspective.
Yes. Well, well, thank you for sharing that, because that is my newest book, and of course the Mind Power book is everyone loves it, and I get so much feedback about that book and how it's transformed people's lives, and I love hearing that. But when you have a new book, then it's really great that to hear the feedback from the new one, and it's just recently been released, but it seems to be touching people deeply and really inspiring people, and that thrills me. The story you're speaking of, and under the chapter of gratitude, it tells the little story about when I was in the cabin, and it was during the winter, and the stove was going out all the time, and my money was running down, and I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing, and I was just kind of feeling pretty miserable, actually, and feeling what am I going to be doing, and doubting myself, and all this was going on, and I walked through the woods into where the dead end road was, and where the mailbox was, and there was a letter from my friend Rinchin, who I lived with when I lived in Singapore, and we traveled all over Southeast Asia together and into the Himalayas and Nepal, and had a wonderful times with him. And anyways, he lost his leg in this freak accident, and so as I'm walking back to my cabin, I'm just suddenly realizing that here's my real good friend, and he now just has one leg. And here I am in my cabin, and I have my two legs. Like, what right do I have to be miserable? And it was then that I made a list, and that probably started off the acknowledging. I made a list of all the things in my life that I had to be grateful for. And I was amazed that there were so many things that I was to be grateful for. And then that evening, and I lit my by kerosene, and I was lighting my kerosene lamp, and I was by myself, and suddenly that evening, the stars are out, and I'm just so grateful to be alive. And I thought to myself, well, what a change of perspective. Here it was this morning. I was just incredibly miserable, and here it is tonight, and I'm just filled with gratitude, and yet nothing has changed in my life. The only thing that has changed is my perspective. And then it got me thinking, maybe it's all perspective. And I made a little point at that point in my life, as I share in the book, to find something every day to give gratitude for. And I very rarely miss a day, and that was 25 years ago.
That's fantastic. And we're going to run out of time, but I want to take one more step beyond that if we could do it. I know you were quite a philanthropist, and I'm wondering if you could talk to us just briefly about giving as it relates to receiving and how giving impacts.
Yes, I'm a very, very big on balancing giving and receiving, and I think we're very poor receivers, by the way. I have a whole segment that I teach on receiving and the importance in receiving, but let me talk a little bit about giving. And I believe in tithing. And tithing is giving a percent of what you earn away from yourself. And when you do this, and it can be any percent that you want. I like to give away 10%. Some people give away 1% or 5% or 20%. Doesn't really matter. But psychologically, it needs to be a percent. And when you give, when your income comes in and you realize that a percent of this does not belong to you, that it must be given away, and you give it away to different communities or charities or individuals or somebody, playing the guitar on the side, and you think, okay, well, I'm going to give that guy $10 or $20. That's tithing. That's giving away, or writing out a check to a homeless shelter. That's tithing. And when you create a practice of this, then what happens is it's one of the strange and mysterious laws of the universe, is that whatever we give away from ourselves comes back many-fold. And the mistake that people make in tithing and giving away from themselves is they say to themselves that I'll give away as soon as I have some money. As soon as I get ahead financially, then I'm going to be real good at giving away. Wrong. You give away now. You give away out of your lack. If you were down to your last $1,000, one of the most powerful things that you could do would be to give away 100. Because let's face it, what's the difference between 1,000 and 900? I mean, you're still kind of, not in a very good situation, but psychologically and spiritually, and you would have created an immense amount of personal energy. So I believe in philanthropy, and that's actually one of the wonderful things about being financially successful, is that you get to help a lot of different individuals and organizations, and I believe strongly in that. But you can't wait until you're financially successful. You have to start your program right now with your humble little beginning, whether it's even $50 or $100 a month. Doesn't matter. It can make a huge difference to you and other people.
Well, and that brings us wonderfully full circle, because those that have a hard time giving away don't trust the universe.
That's right. That's right.
So it's a wonderful way to wrap up. John, I know that many of our members are going to be interested in looking further into your work, and I was very excited to hear that you're going to be one of the speakers at Peak Potential's Wealth and Wisdom seminar this fall. So that's one way people can see you and hear your work. But for those that don't want to wait that long, can you tell us about your website and how to get there and what people can find there?
Yes, but let me also add, I'm also looking forward to being there at the seminar. We're going to have a fabulous time together, and I love sharing this information. For people that want to know more about my work, you best log on to my website, and that is learnmindpower.com. I mean, if you want to learn about mind power, then come on to learnmindpower.com, and
it's all run together.
And it's all run together there, and that can let you know about my tours and where I am. And I'm a bit of a gypsy. I go all over the world, so you sort of catch me when you can.
Now, people can buy your books directly from the website. They can also get them at most of the bookstores.
Yeah, on the website you can get books, tapes, and videos, and my books are readily available at all bookstores.
Fabulous.